Good evening, everyone. So I finally got around to updating my Bitcoin and Ether charts, and well, in fact, all the crypto market charts, like all the totals, others, etc., for the annual levels. So finally, I can give an update on where I think the market's going, and I'm hoping the stream is okay. This is the first time, so I've set up multi-stream now, so I'm streaming to YouTube, horizontal and vertical, and onto Twitch as well, just to see how that works. I don't know if my bandwidth's up to it, so I guess we'll see. I have closed a lot of my chart windows, so hopefully we'll be okay on that. And yeah, let me know. So, Bitcoin. So hopefully the stream won't be too long, but not my usual 10 hours. But there are quite a few things to consider if we're looking at the macro. So, hold on, let me just go to my high time frame chart. So, this is the full chart with the parabola, and I've kind of grouped all my drawings and things, so it's still a bit hectic, but not quite as hectic as it can be. So looking at the rolling over of the parabola here, and the retracements from previous bull runs. My projection here was basically the log 161, because that's where we went to last time. And so that was around 170k. But now we've currently hit the linear 161, so it's not surprising we're seeing some sort of a retracement here. And the text below is basically telling you of each move what type of fib retracement we've done. So I've used the trend fib and the retracement fibs. Both the first two bull runs went up to the 78% trend fib and the 227 retracement fib from the previous move. And then the last bull run was slightly more conservative, and it only went to the 61% trend fib and this 161 retracement fib. And then the current move is currently at the 61% trend fib and the 127 retracement fib. So it could stop here. Ideally, we'd want it going a little bit higher and closer to the parabola if it was going to follow previous patterns, which it doesn't have to. I think, we are in a very different market now. So it's hoping my YouTube's running. We're in a because I've got a spinning wheel to one side of me, which is making me slightly worried. But it does say excellent connection, which is unusual. So yeah, so we've got to the 161, so it's possible it ends here, but typically we would go a little bit higher than this, and January earlier in the year, and we've got some things going on in the traditional markets which are affecting it today. I don't really want to take today's local drop as a big deal, because if you look at it on this time frame, it's really not much in the grand scheme of things. However, we have just hit the bottom of my projection box, which was this most conservative 61% trend fib level. We did make annual demand on the plus side, so I'll just show that since I'm on this chart with less information on it. So annual demand being this last red candle, we've closed significantly above. So back down here at 46k, and obviously it can dip deeper inside that if it wants, but those would be solid levels to go long if price gets back down there. And then additionally, we've got a 3-month demand close to price, so I've got both of those drawn in on here, so you can see on the lower time frames. From the other thing, so I did cover some of this in my video last week, but it was the video that didn't work, so that didn't really help. Then on top of that, we've got let me just hide some of this. Okay, so if I take off the fib projections, the other projection I did as the price range was the date. Where is the date ranges? So I did have a look at the dates from previous bottoms to next tops. and it was slightly challenging from a wave perspective because we had two bottoms in 2015, two bottoms in 2018, but only one bottom in 2022. And then we had two tops in 2018 and 2021, but only one back here. But on what it has done is then given two options. So from a bottom to a top, we've got 1,000 days basically, or 850 days. And those aligned with March and October. I mean, this has shifted slightly, but basically around March and around October, in fact maybe February on this. Depends which time frame I look at this on, because obviously these are more vague projections. Actually this is coming up to mid-February 2025 or October for the final top, if we were to match previous waves, which obviously may or may not happen. It's just we do these projections just so we've got some vague idea of what we might be looking at. Then on top of that, I also did the fib timelines, and again used the bottom 2018 to either of the two tops. And interestingly, like, depends on those two options, both also came out as the same as the 850 days or the 1000 days. So March and October. So that was kind of interesting. So we're kind of looking at hopefully now not being the top. Is there anything else I want to show on here? I've got I had where the verticals, where the halvings are. I had a whole bunch of analysis I did previously on fib timelines and things like that. I think that's about all that needs to be shown on this chart particularly. But as I said, so while we might have the top in now because we are at that linear 161 fib and the 61 retracement fib, we could potentially go higher to the log 161 fib if we had the same strength as we had on the previous wave, noting that the two before that were even greater, but the strength can be dying off. So it is possible this is the top from a projection perspective based on history, but we still need to see a bit more. But also, like I said, the structures are very, very different. We've got 3 months demand here, which we've never had before, but are the sort of things I like and don't like about the current structure, which I will get to. Okay, let's go back to the normal chart. My YouTube window is still spinning. Oh, and I didn't even start recording it, so that's not very helpful. I'll start recording it just in case. So back to my normal chart, which is full of information. So I've said before, we've got this sort of 3 month demand here. The thing I don't really like about this is I don't know if I've just seen enough charts now that I just wouldn't be confident. Despite the fact this is 3 months demand, I'm not overly confident we'll bounce here if we come back down there. I don't know why though. And I can't really see anything else on the chart. So, you know, I remember I used to scoff a bit at gut instinct. When people used to talk about it, I'd be like, oh, well, it should be data driven. But as I've got older, I've kind of realised that gut instinct has a big part to play, because gut instinct is your experience. So this, for example, looks quite similar to this, but then obviously we didn't make a higher high at that point. And also we haven't come back down to test this really. But I suppose noting we did go straight through that when we did come back down. So a consolidation here, and this actually reminds me quite a lot of Ether. And again, I'll get to that because there's just things I really don't like about the Ether chart. But then similarly, you know, we had a bottom quite like that here, and, you know, we did go up from there. I suppose it's just if it comes back to test. And it's a different structure anyway. I mean, this didn't make a higher high here, so it's basically saying that that's weaker demand, but that's also why it reminds me of the Ether chart. So similar here, you know, it didn't make a higher high. We had kind of big consolidation in here, but it did garner a bounce when it got back there. But again, no higher high. It went lower and went back to a deeper demand before the bigger up move. Bitcoin, however, obviously is bullish. It's broken out. Lower time frame. So what I'm looking for, higher time frame in summary is 46,000 is, you know, all that area. I would have to fib it once I know where the top is. You know, the 61 I think is quite low in there at the moment, 32k. So 30k, there's a 3 month inside the annual demand would be a kind of key place to look. 46k would be a key place to look. if we get a retest down there, and then there's 3 month demand. So the 3 month being around 72k. But again, these zones you can dip deeper inside, and the chop makes it difficult. But I've spent, you know, in the past I've spent a lot of time kind of trying to figure out where we'd bounce if we come back down here, and we've ended up never coming back down. So I don't want to spend too much time doing that. But if we do revisit here, you know, we're looking at the 3 month zone as being 50 to 72k. And we're looking for a bounce somewhere in there. Ideally, you would fib the whole thing and find out where your 61 to 78 is, or 61-70 area, which tends to differ on the log and linear scales, and try and make some sort of judgment. The 61 is actually right on the top at the moment, which is really nice on the linear scale, and on the log scale, it would be a bit deeper inside. So, interesting levels to watch if we come back down there. Now, in the short term, we had a 3 week demand that was made last week by a hair. So you can see this candle. And I said we'd made it, but I said it was weak. We closed slightly above, and I said I didn't like it much, because I've seen them break down quite a lot. But again, I can't be bearish until we've seen a 3 week close under here, and we've still got 2 weeks for that to happen. 2 week and 1 week. So again, we managed to close above, so we didn't create a 1 week supply, although we already had a weekly consolidation in here, which has been rejected. So still this is a consolidation at this level. And what we have at the bottom here is this daily demand. So really what's bounding this entire consolidation is this daily demand here. So until this breaks down, I'm not bearish. And I've shown this pattern many times in the past, normally on a higher time frame, like not normally with the daily here, but I showed it back, I think on the 3 week chart over here. So you can see the similarities on the lower time frame here. Here we had a 3 week demand, and while we were looking horrible here until we broke the 3 week demand, I wasn't bearish. And similarly, so we tried again, and then we tried again. It did come and bounce off this 3 week again here, but by that time it had made 3 week supply, and that's when we broke back through it. So there are similarities with that structure. And if you see now, so this up move is bounded by this daily demand at the bottom here, which we pop back into today. So we're looking now for this to kind of all, in the next couple of days, it can wick through here, but I wouldn't want to see a close below here. I would like to see a kind of bigger move off here. If we don't get that, and if we start to make higher time frame supply, which we're on the cusp of doing at the moment, then I'm going to be much more bearish overall. From a 5 day perspective, what happened last week is that we had this 5 day supply here. It was weak because it hadn't closed significantly below, and we took a big wick up inside it, but then that's what's rejected. So potentially, I'm thinking, I think the CME chart is much cleaner on that, but we are seeing a lot of supply created above. What I was really hoping last night, and I can show the lower time frame chart, is that we get a wick up to that monthly level into this 4 hour here before the drop, but unfortunately we didn't quite get that high. Then on top of that, we have a 4 hour supply at the top of here, which hasn't been tested yet. And again, my gut instinct is saying I wouldn't want to short that if it comes back there. If it's a swing failure off the low, then there's a chances are it'll take out that high. But again, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But that's why at the moment my potential short entry is a little bit higher. And then I'd still look at the 4 hour there if we swing fail or take out these highs this week. So that's something to watch out for. Could also swing fail the 4 hour itself, so go a touch higher than this, but that would be kind of, I'm looking for the immediate rejection, or the possibility of immediate rejection. Then as of the lows today, so I was looking at not so much that low, but this low, which is a weekly low to get taken out, which was my first possible long entry, and then also potentially to take out this low, and then the next one, this low. I mean, there's a whole bunch through here. For swing failures, we have taken out the first lot, but now we need to see this kind of get momentum and go back up and start to make low time frame demand, etc., before we want to have confirmed longs. And it's difficult now. I'm just going to move those over a bit. Probably shouldn't have done that anyway. It's difficult now because we are choppy through here. the supply is quite close. There's a 12-hour supply here, but as I said, because of those wicks left above there and the fact this is a Monday, I would expect that to get taken out. But you never know, we might get a rejection here. If we are to move lower than those, it just becomes difficult and it's knife catching. And I have found lots of arguments when I was looking earlier. I found lots of arguments for low time frame zones inside. So, you know, if we take out this zone, possibly we just bounce on the first zone, which is the 4 hour here, and it's the 61 fib, and it's the linear fib is a little bit higher. There's also a naked point of control there, so if I put those on, there's a weird notification, I don't normally hear that sound. And we just put the point of controls on so you can see. So I've got the session point of control, which is daily, and then I've also got a weekly and a monthly in there. So if I just hide everything else for a minute, the daily is the red ones, and the green I think is the monthly, and the blue is the weekly. So, and I haven't used the green and the blue that much, but I just kind of put them on there to observe. But so you can see that around this 4 hour zone, and there's another 4 hour zone below, there's two naked point of controls there, and then we've got the weekly naked point of control and the 12 hour just below, plus a CME gap, and that's the bigger CME gap, I believe. So there's kind of an argument for bouncing here, there's an argument for bouncing here. Then we've got the next significant zone is 4 hour demand, 4 day demand here, and that 3 month level, and then the various zones inside it. So again, it just becomes, like, for me anyway, maybe I'm just too over the top about it, but there are too many zones that I could see bounces on for various reasons, so we just need to kind of watch the zones as they hit. But this kind of just looks like I've marked every zone. The other thing that I've noticed in the past is when I do mark every zone, the top one, the first one, might get the bounce, but then if there are too many, it's not just me that doesn't know where to long, it's like nobody knows where to long because it's not clear, and therefore you can find it can just run through all the zones. So that's the risk. So I wouldn't suggest limit orders at any of these zones, but I think, you know, you can watch them, you can see if there are walls there, if the data supports longs, as and when they get hit. Do you see the bounce? Does the data support that? You know, if you're a high time frame trader, you could just put entries cost averaging on all the zones, and then whichever ones get hit. But if you're leverage trading, then I would just suggest waiting it out and seeing what gets tested. The only thing I haven't done on this actually is tally this. Normally what I try and do is tally this with the career chart and the CME chart. So I might do that a little bit later and just see, but yeah, so that's CME gap. There you can see the CME gap down to there, so that would be the 77k mark, and would be the lower of the two question marks, if that's to fill, and we've seen the Ether gap fill today. And then I would also want to see the alignment with US dollar dominance, but again, this has that 4 hour equivalent to Bitcoin, but it's already hit it and it's hitting it again. Then it's got the 12 hour, and then it's got a 2 month supply, so that would kind of be the more significant, but I would like to see these things line up, and then I get more confident. The career chart is significantly more bullish. After this big drop we had on career, it then pushed, and we had like in my previous video I was showing the career, the kimchi premium was significantly higher, and I've noted also that in the past, I'll show the chart in a minute, but I noticed also in the past that when the kimchi premium goes significantly higher, it's normally the end of the bull run, basically. So that's kind of not ideal, but it is a factor to be aware of, and one thing I said to be aware of when we were at the top here. But this is still looking quite a lot stronger. You know, the equivalent daily, or it's in this case 3 day zone, is down here, so it's still a significant drop that it could have there and still hold. And the structure is just overall a bit different. The annual level is significantly lower, in fact was made last year and bounced, and that was what gave us the big bounce in January last year, or helped. But yeah, so Korea could still go quite a long way down in here, I think, and that's what I was trying to align earlier. I think there was a 10% drop or so from there to this 3 day here, and that would align with the US dollar pair getting to the 4 hour zone. Excuse me, drink a little bit of water. So yeah, Anyway, those are the key levels I'm looking at on Bitcoin. Quite a few of them, unfortunately. I don't like to give so many, but like I say, various reasons, and it becomes hard once if price does start to fall, then it can fall like a stone. And yeah, I would not suggest knife catching in that situation anyway. Having said that, obviously we have bounced now. So I'm not necessarily going even lower as of today. So we need to see a bit more of the week play out. So Monday. I was looking also at the last 2 Mondays. So Monday we can quite often have the trade where Monday makes a high or a low, and then Tuesday takes it out, and then trends the other way. So we had that last weekend. We had Monday make a high, Tuesday Asia took out the high, and then we trended back all the way down. So, while we have that at the top, the previous 2 Mondays, we had the same Monday low, but the Tuesday didn't take it out. So we had the drop after the weekend. And this is Christmas, so maybe it was a little bit different, but 23rd of December and then 30th of December, and then Tuesday made a higher low before we went up from there. Excuse me. So yeah, so there's a possibility that this is the low already done, and that we're just going to run up from here now through Tuesday. And particularly we have PPI tomorrow and CPI on Wednesday, so both of those could have an effect and could send markets back in the other direction. We've had equities, S&P, NASDAQ, Dow have all fallen. US equities have all fallen quite a lot today. But they are all in major demand. So S&P was about to hit a monthly demand, although my alert hasn't gone yet, so I think it hasn't quite got there. Dow was already in it. NASDAQ does have further it could fall, but NASDAQ can be a bit of an outlier, and I think it's in a 2-week demand anyway. So yeah, not bearish until I see this demand broken that's holding up this whole consolidation. It's slightly concerning because it's a daily, and we've now got a long consolidation on top of it. It would be preferable if it was a weekly or something like that. Let me just check. Check my notifications. 1 second. Seems to be okay. I'm going to got someone testing testing my streams for me, so apparently they seem to be okay, so that's good, because they don't really look okay at my end, but that's fine, as long as they look okay for a viewer. Right, so yeah, so I think that's pretty much it on Bitcoin. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to say on that. The other sort of things are bits of data that I normally cover. So the ETF data, I've got a missing day on the 9th of January, and I don't think it was a public holiday, so I'm not sure if the data with Farside's gone a bit dodgy here. It's kind of back on the 10th, but we finally did have some selling off. So we had BlackRock doing some heavy buying in the first week of January, but then they finally started selling off now. But then interestingly, we've had some Grayscale and Fidelity have bought a little bit, but it's still fairly low data for Friday. Like I say, I don't know why there wasn't any Thursday data. My other source, which is Bitcoin Strategy Platform, is showing that there was. So it's got a few zeros in here, but it does have a Grayscale figure and a Valkyrie figure, and a total figure. So I'm not sure what's happened to the data on the 9th of January, or if there was a public holiday that I'm not aware of. Because there's still no BlackRock or Fidelity data for that day, so it's slightly confusing. But that's just a general data issue. But yeah, so we are seeing a bit of selling off there, so it's not surprising we've seen this drop. Then I had a quick look at the walls and the liquidation data. So the walls really, there are, at least now we have some buy walls. We didn't have many previously when I looked. So down at 88k, Binance 88k, 87k has got decent sized walls, 85, and then 80. I don't know if we don't go much lower than that, but I don't know. Cross that bridge when we come to it. It seems to be down there by Okay, let's try this again. Hopefully we're back. And I had a blue screen of death, just constant technical difficulties. And yeah, I'm trying to remember where I was. I think I was just talking about the walls. Throws you off when that happens. I think I was talking about the walls, and then I was also wanting to look at the final thing I wanted to look at was this, which hopefully hasn't logged me out. So it was just some of the data that I quickly looked at for today. So you can see that aggregated open interest has really fallen off in today's pump. So that's shorts being squeezed. We haven't really got a strong CVD as yet, so it's more shorts being squeezed than longs opening, although I haven't looked at the detail on the data of that. But we're not really seeing longs opening to support this move yet, nor are we seeing the CVDs increasing to support a strong up move. Could just mean more sideways, doesn't necessarily have to mean down. But yeah, that's predominantly shorts being squeezed, which is not overly surprising. Let me just check if I'm streaming again on Twitch. Yep, seems to be running. Okay, sorry about the technical difficulties. That one day I might get, I just keep trying to do new things and then it becomes all complicated. Anyway, so yeah, I don't want to go massively into the data, so I'm going to close some of that stuff down and go back to the charts. So this is my low time frame chart, and just mirrors the levels that I was talking about in the higher time frame. So Ether I haven't got to yet, I'll get to that in a bit. So Bitcoin obviously bounced off that swing fail that I was looking for there, with the other one being slightly lower, and then this 4-day that's got missed. I did look for a long entry this morning, which probably wasn't wise given that it's the CME's opening and it was a Sunday, but there was an 8-hour demand here that I thought might get a bit of a bounce. To be fair, it actually did. It just went all the way to the bottom of it before giving the higher high, and then as I said, the higher high it took out Friday's high, but I was looking for it to just go a little bit higher into that 4-hour supply up there and take out some more of this consolidation. So I was just a little bit overly conservative on that short entry, but the long entries worked out pretty well, and then we've held 30-minute demand here. And go back to, sorry, you're going to have to wait for some of these charts to reload because of the computer shutdown situation. Just look at some of these other factors. This is obviously not loaded half the information yet. Okay, so US dollar dominance, again, just to reiterate the same that I give in every update, that we had 6-month demand here is what we're testing on US dollar dominance. So that's again why I was kind of bullish over the previous 6 months. And we got a run up into 3-month supply, or in fact just short of 3-month supply, and I had an alert there, but it just threw me off by being rejecting slightly lower. And then it's come back down again. So there is a possibility now that obviously make a double bottom. We've taken out the lows here, and we've taken out the lows here. I'll put my information back on. But I kind of was wanting, oops, we have the 61 fib a little bit lower and another 6-month level in there. And when you have stacked 6-month levels like this, where there's a 6-month zone on top of a 6-month zone, it's possible we go to the lower one. So I was kind of hoping this move would take us down. And it still might. So we have, and I'll just remove everything so it's easier to see, but we closed just under here, so it's possible we reject off the 2-month supply here, but then there's a clean 2-month supply there, so it's possible we get a run up into here before a secondary drop. And that's again what I'll be looking for longs on Bitcoin, like if we get up to this 2-month zone. 2-month zones are a bit dubious. I don't know if they're as good as monthly or 3-monthly. I don't know how many people look at 2-month, but it's still 2 months of kind of consolidation. But yeah, so the 12-hour zone there that I talked about already, and then the 2-month up there are potentially areas I'd look at for another rejection. But being conscious that this could be a double bottom, and if it is a double bottom, that really doesn't bode well for Bitcoin, because a double bottom target would be back up by the highs, and therefore Bitcoin back at 30k. So we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. We're still within this like local downtrend, and even the immediate range. And it was just very choppy over Christmas, so it was quite hard. So we did have a 5-day demand here that I was conscious of, but then when it closed back inside there, and then it made a 5-day supply, and now we pushed through that and just taken stops. So we're still just looking at a little local range. If we start to make a daily, or there's a possibility of a 2-day demand in there, then maybe I'll have to get slightly more bullish for a move up into here, and then, like I said, a bigger drop on Bitcoin. Sorry, just please use a keyframe frequency of 4 seconds or less. I don't know what that means. Anybody know what a keyframe frequency is? But my that stream is not running now. Wonderful. So one of my streams is running and the other one is not running. Unfortunately, I've named them the same, so I don't know which one's running and which one isn't. Obviously. Hold on, let me just check. All this drama. Let me just check I'm getting things running through correctly. So because I don't want to stream to myself, which is what happened last week when I had computer issues. Seems to be running, but it might just have not very good quality, which is not great either. Anyway, moving on. So US dollar dominance, that's that. And then the other things I was checking out were total. So total obviously doesn't look dissimilar to Bitcoin. It's made an annual demand down here, starting from 2.19 trillion. It's got a 3-month just above it. Still holding this local range. There's not much more to be said than that. You know, it's broken out, and this is just testing the all-time high. So it's in a reasonably good spot there, assuming it doesn't break down. Total 2, which removes removes BTC, so it's more reflective of Ether. It did close just over the annual level there, but it's not significantly over, such that I'd kind of want to trade it if I was trading this directly. Also has the 3-month demand below. Spread the chart out a bit. 3 months demand just in here, so if we get a tap into the top of here, that could be a decent place to look for longs, or again looking lower. Total 3, which is removing Bitcoin and ETH and reflecting more alts, again got that close just above the annual level, in fact more above than the total 2 chart, because we had so much more strength on the old majors, but again 3 months demand a lot lower, and then potentially could test deeper inside that, but still holding up here. But the real issue I have with all these charts, I thought I'd updated that, but is that we've got this swing failure of the high. And so while total has broken out, total 2 has not quite broken the high. Total 3 is a swing fail of the high. Just there. Others, which is the smaller alts, also not quite broken the high and hasn't made that annual demand either. This concerns me, and this was the comment I made in a chat earlier, that if this is bouncing and coming up and it's unable to make a higher high, then what it's saying is that whatever demand here has been made here is not strong. It's not stronger than the sellers here. So the buyers here aren't stronger than the sellers here because they've been unable to break out. Now there is a possibility we still bounce here and then make the higher high. But the real issue is if we start to break through this demand. But again, this demand can't be seen as that strong because it hasn't broken significantly above this high. And on this others chart, what we have is a swing failure on the monthly into the failed wave area of the 113 to the 127 fib. So again, that's not overly promising. So yes, I've set alert for a retest in here. and we might get a consolidation through here, but there are things that on this chart that make me a little bit nervous, and the inability to break out at this point, and the strength of the buyers just seems to be waning a little bit, and doubly so with the fact that this hasn't tested into the annual demand. Like if this had tested in here, then I think we probably would have seen a stronger breakout. But it hasn't made it down there. Okay, yes, it's holding the breakout level, which is good in itself, but with still very much looking like a possibility of a double top. And we had the same top here, double top into the 113, which I've talked about before, into the failed wave area. And as far as it being alt season goes, a lot of people were talking about alt season, and you know, this is clearly an alt season. This is clearly an alt season. This is it. I mean, it hasn't broken out. Yes, we could sort of be in this type of area trying to do the breakout, but you know, we've tried once and now we've tried a second time, and the fact we haven't got a significant move out now, again, just for me, doesn't bode that well. But anyway, let's not be too fatalistic. Those are my thoughts on Total 3 and others anyway, or the totals and others, and TOTALDEFI is the same. So again, didn't make an annual demand, in fact rejected a monthly supply there, rejected a monthly supply with a monthly swing failure. And then the other thing that I've said, and I'll go into on when I get to the Ether chart, is I just don't really like these, I don't like trading the apexes of these triangles, because I just feel, again, that they're likely to fail. And like here would have been a triangle, and it came down and tried to test the top of it, and then eventually fell through it. And I feel like that's quite a common pattern, and I've drawn it a few times in the past on low and high time frames, where we have a triangle, a break up, and then a distribution, and then it comes back through. That's dramatic, but it comes back through the triangle. And we've very much seen that on Ether on the low time frames, and was something I talked about in my last video and in my Telegram updates. But yeah, so that makes me slightly nervous of longs in this area, but I guess we'll see. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Bitcoin dominance still looking strong, so we were expecting the rejection off this 3-month supply. There's a 6-month slightly higher inside it. We got that rejection initially, but it just came straight back into 2-month demand, and is still seeing strength coming off that. Had made a monthly supply by a hair, but now is, again, just seems to be building and still seems to be stronger compared to the rest of the market. Could just be a B wave. There is a 3-day supply up here, so that would be an area of interest. Mark the areas of interest on this. My icons. So 6-month is a possibility off the back of holding this, and there's quite a strong bounce off the 2-month demand here. So it's still possible we go up there, but then the risk area for this coming week or two is potentially up in this 3-day. So there was a 5-day there that it did just tap off, and it's held a 4-day demand, or 4-day. It's tapped off that 4-day and it's held 4-day demand. It's possible we get another push into the 3-day supply up here and then start to see the drop. So again, that's something to watch out for on BTC dominance. And what else then? Ether dominance. Ether dominance, yeah, unfortunately looks significantly worse than ETHBTC. So we had this 3-month level that we were looking at, a 3-month zone, and we've got the bounce off it. And at the moment, ETHBTC is on a high low, but Ether dominance has dropped down. And again, they're like inside there, like it could bounce anywhere inside here, to be honest. You know, we're looking at levels, and this is a dominance chart, so the accuracy is slightly less so, but we've got levels now that have all been tested. So then it becomes a little bit harder. We're in this 3-month demand, and we're looking for signs of reversal, but so far unable to make the higher low and unable to make a higher high. We also created, and I shared this on the ETHBTC chart, we've made a monthly supply in here. So again, that makes it slightly more risky. In this case, it hasn't tested it, but in the case of the ETHBTC pair, it has tested it. Anyway, I'll talk about Ether in a minute, so I won't go into that now. Others dominance, so we did have an annual demand here, but again, it's just kind of on the cusp of this rather dodgy looking triangle consolidation. And much like I've commented on a lot of the alts, and like I've said before, that the others dominance chart seems to resemble what the alts more than the others chart. But a lot of the alts are stuck between monthly supply here and this sort of new weak monthly demand that's made there, and we've seen some drifting deeper inside, as you can see with this candle, with now 5-day supply above, and in the case of a lot of alts they've got weekly supply above, and the dominance chart doesn't quite have that, but it's still on the cusp of whatever it's going to do, and it's looking slightly dodgy. We did have a strong up move, but the strong up move on a lot of alts ended in a swing failure of monthly supply, or they had a monthly supply a little bit lower than this chart shows, and ended like the close of the year on a swing failure. So that's not ideal. Let me just double check my stream. Apparently it's working, so that's good. So yeah, so that's others dominance, and then TOTALDEFI dominance is pretty much the same, albeit slightly weaker. So the issue we have with TOTALDEFI dominance is it made an annual supply, and again we see that on some of the alts have made an annual supply, and it hasn't tested it because this is the December candle. So while it looks like it's tested the annual supply, it hasn't. But again, it's drifting deeper now into this monthly demand and is about to hit the 2-week inside, so I guess we'll see. But I'm not overly confident. It's not a strong annual supply because it hasn't broken demand yet and hasn't made a significant new low, but it's still something I wouldn't counter trade. So I don't love the look of that. And then finally, coin. So I look at all the equities related. So we'll just look at the monthlies of those. The Coinbase equity has rejecting a 6-month supply up here. So again, I can't be bullish on this right now when it's rejecting 6-month supply, or when it's inside 6-month supply. So you can't be bullish at resistance, be bullish at support, and bearish at resistance. So this is in resistance and it started rejecting. It does have a monthly or 2-monthly demand immediately below, so we just need to see what the reaction is on here. And the others are kind of very similar, or just similar-ish. Monthly supply on BITO, which is the futures ETF, I believe. But again, has some space before it gets down to demand. We normally see the confluence on these with Bitcoin, so RIOT is slightly better, but it's still in 2-month supply here, and it didn't make a monthly demand, but it's looking less bad here. You know, it has come off 3-month demand at the lows, but I guess we'll see. It's still in a consolidation pattern, but we could see a breakup from that. That is a possibility. Mara looking slightly more bearish, but again has 3-month demand right below, but it's tested it multiple times. But I guess where Bitcoin has seen the breakout here, we haven't got that breakout on Mara. HUT was another one of the stronger ones, so these are a little bit mixed, but what I am seeing is I guess the weaker ones seem to have support closer, unsurprisingly. The stronger ones have support further away, but again, if we are to come back to support, that gives a significant drop before that, and then we might see the weaker ones break support. So this is in a 3-month supply that I haven't got drawn in, but just from that level, but I've just got the weekly in there. And then MicroStrategy, obviously the big buyer of Bitcoin. My issue with this is basically closed. This is like a rogue line. Every time I come on this chart, this yearly line is there, and every time I come on, I delete it and it comes back. Don't know why it comes, where it appears from, but so we closed, MicroStrategy closed as a swing failure on the yearly chart, which isn't ideal either. And so it had an annual demand down here, and it really pounded off that. It has 3-month and 2-month demand in this area, but again, the swing failure, like if it fails to get back over this level, then again, it could see a significant drop. I don't want to say it could go all the way back down there, but from a range perspective. But either way, potentially we're going to see a retest on this of the 3-month. So, and then, yeah, we've got 6-month and yearly demands back through there if it does come a lot lower, but this is the 3-month demand is where we'd be initially looking to see if MicroStrategy can get a bounce. It's got some weeklies, you know, that's the more bearish outlook. It's got weekly demand before that, so there are levels it could hold higher. But again, this is looking like there's space for more further drop. So So yeah, I guess overall the equities looking like there's space for more drop, and much as like what we see on Bitcoin. I think that's pretty much it on the overall market before I move on to Ether. But basically, just to summarize, quick summary of Bitcoin. Created annual demand all the way down here at 46k. Got a 3-month in at 70k, so that would be, so the 3-month is your shorter term area of interest. 46k if we get a bigger drop, or that zone. As I said, it can run much deeper in the zone if it wants, and there's a 3 months inside that at 30k. We have got 5 waves up, so it is possible we see the larger retracement. I've said that I don't want to kind of just draw fibs repeatedly, excuse the mess of the chart, without knowing where the top is. But certainly at the stage we're at, and a normal retracement, it wouldn't be surprising for it to come down to the 30k. It would be surprising for Bitcoin, but if it's starting to act more like traditional markets, that wouldn't be surprising. And it certainly is likely to start acting more like traditional markets. Given the ETFs. So what we're looking for on the lower time frames is 3-week supply going to confirm here? Are we going to get a 3-week close below here? But we've got 2 weeks till that happens. We could close 2 weeks sooner than that. So at the end of this week, we're looking at, are we going to get a 2-week supply, or is this just a Monday aberration where we've dropped down in here, we've taken stops, and we're going to move back up again? Areas of interest for shorts: 12-hour supply if we get to the top, 4-hour in here looking for a swing failure at that level, slightly more lower probability there, but worth watching. Areas of interest for longs: there's another weekly wick that could get taken out just below the low we've made today, and then we could also take out this whole daily consolidation. It's only allowed to on a wick, so if this daily consolidation breaks down, then I'll be significantly more bearish. Below that, there are just too many areas to be of interest to be knife catching from, but there's 4-hour demand and naked point of control and 61 fib there. 12-hour demand, CME close, CME gap there at the 70 fib, and there's a weekly naked point of control, and then we start moving down into the 5-day, 3-month levels. So that's Bitcoin in a nutshell at the end there, and hopefully that's all gone through okay. Any questions, let me know in chat. Moving on to Ether, which is kind of looking a bit more ropey. So we'll start just on the ETHBTC chart, which is yet to load. So again, like I just touched on this with the Ether dominance, but we've got this 3-month demand. Ether dominance has gone much lower than this previous low now, but this is still holding a higher low. That was the area I wanted it to bounce, but unfortunately it rejected supply, and we had this new monthly zone. So again, not surprising. It's come back up into the monthly zone and is now making a lower low. What we want is for it to hold above that low. Whether that's going to happen, I don't know. It's not showing any signs of it as yet. So again, just to go back to the comparison I've made many times previously. So we had this broadening wedge here, and then we saw it drop out of the bottom of the broadening wedge into the monthly demand. That's exactly the same pattern as we had in 2019. We had a broadening wedge, and then we dropped out into monthly demand. We also made a monthly supply, in this case in November. In fact, was that November as well? Both made a November monthly supply. So while we generally don't like monthly supply, what we did see back in 2019 was that it tapped into it, rejected, made a higher low, and still went up. So what we're hoping is that we're going to get the same reaction here. I've also commented previously, you can't see on this time frame, the purple line is the Ether US dollar price, that just because we go up, it doesn't necessarily mean that Ether US dollar goes up. It could just mean it goes down less than Bitcoin. So while ETHBTC was kind of going up and then a bit sideways here, we had a drop in the Ether US dollar price, and then it was January, February that we actually started to have a pump on Ether US dollar. So there is still hope for that happening, but we still need to see signs of that on a low time frame. And we're a little bit later in time, pushing into January, but we started to see this January, February move, and that's what we're kind of really hoping for on Ether at the moment. If it continues to drop, I mean, you do need to see, you need to wait for the daily time frame to confirm that, or 12-hour or 8-hour at least, to give some significant time frame rather than just trying to jump in on a 15-minute reversal. This could drop down into the 0.27 area still, there's a 3-day down there that's untested, and then, if it's going to drop further, then again, we'll deal with that as a situation arises. Let me just hide this price for a moment. The other issue we have, and go on to the log chart as well. The other issue we had, and as I explained just talking about Bitcoin, is that we've had this strong impulse up here, then we've got a demand retest and a push here. This push is significantly weaker than the push we had in 2017. So while we have a demand here, this is not necessarily strong demand. It's been unable to break supply. So we do run the risk of this just breaking down. So when you're talking about corrections in general, it's a significantly long correction, and I always say I'm not an Elliott wave kind of person, but I do just look at, we can make triangle corrections, and yes, that's possible, but we can also make zigzag corrections, and that means that could go down here, taking out this low. So always things to be slightly aware of, and I know people freak out when I say things like that, but again, we're just trading what we see. So at the moment, we're still making and creating supply, and we're still rejecting every supply. So until we see supply break, as you see here, it's made a sideways consolidation, and in fact, it just came straight back up to that broadening wedge, and it was a monthly supply up there as well. Until we start to see the uptrend form, we're not in an uptrend. So while we're looking at levels that we might see a reversal, such as here, we can't assume there's a reversal until it's proven to be one, and that means breaking supply and seeing a break of structure to the upside. And we're seeing a bit of sideways now, although today's obviously looking, this week, or this to daily candles, looking a bit dodgy. We still need to see a little bit more from this before we can be confident that we're going to have a reversal. The US dollar pair, and again, this is reflecting the comments I made on total. Let's remove the drawings. This didn't break out, didn't break the previous high from 2022. There's a bit more chart, but I'm still using the BitMEX chart, so I'm lacking a bit of history here. But we haven't broken the previous high. This can still be a massive range, and my concern again really is that this is not bullish when you compare back to this. Bit more bullish in the from late 2023 to early 2024, but again, it's still, for me, this is still relatively corrective, and it does make me nervous that this can still make a lower low here. The other thing that makes me nervous, and as I commented in the earlier part of the video, is this consolidation here. So that while we can have these consolidations that pump and BART either side, we can also have a BART which then just breaks down entirely. And again, this is not a consolidation that's been able to make a higher high. What it's done is made a swing fail of the high, and therefore it's entirely possible that we come back down and take out quite a lot of these stops. That's the bear view. Similarly on the 3 month, no new annual supply on this, didn't create a higher high there, didn't take out the overall high either. Korea did, but the US dollar pair didn't. We've got a 3 month demand down there and a 3 month demand down here. But as I've said, because this hasn't come back down and tested this properly, it wouldn't surprise me if this comes back into the 1000s in the bigger picture. The other thing is we had a 2 month supply, and that was where I was initially looking for shorts, and again we've closed on a swing failure of that 2 month supply. So again, that's not a promising close at all really on that. In its favour, we do have a monthly demand here. So I guess what I would hope for is a bounce off here, and then we'll just have to see, you know, is that bounce going to be strong enough to make a new high? But again, this is not what I would consider a strong demand. So while I've alerted there, you can see my alert, and while I've alerted there, it would not surprise me if we take out this low. And then the bigger picture, really it wouldn't surprise me if we take out that low as well. But don't freak out, cross that bridge when we come to it. Other than that, prospect of creating a 3-week supply or a 2-week supply are in play now. Looking for longs down here if we revisit. So again, the other thing that I was talking about last week is this, again, quite a common pattern. So it's the triangle in the distribution. So what we had here is a bounce, we had a triangle consolidation, and then we had a pump, and then we dropped back through it. And I said, you know, and I did initially have an entry there for a long, and then I removed it saying I just wasn't confident of it. And what you can see is we dropped straight back through. We had the exact same pattern here. This is what I was recognizing it from. Came up here, made a triangle consolidation, distribution, took out the high, and then dropped back through it. In this case, we've made a higher low from the wick, whereas this has now dropped to a lower low. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to continue or not continue, but what I'm saying is that those triangle consolidations aren't necessarily strong demand. This would have been weaker because it didn't make a significant move above it. This made a better move above it, but still that move went straight into 5-day supply up there. On the other view, so again over here we've got one of those sort of lows. We've come back down, we have tested this, and it has held, but again hasn't held in order to make a higher high, one of these BART moves. So again, in the bigger picture, and I did do some drawings on this so you could see more what I meant. They're projections I've had for a while. So this one, so this is the smaller move here projected into the bigger picture. So where it's come down here, made a consolidation, lower high, another consolidation, lower high, and then broken down, we can then overlay into the bigger picture. So there is again the prospect, and this isn't something that I think would be unusual. I know people will get very upset with me saying this, but this is not something that I think would be an unusual pattern. You know, when you're looking at lower highs and you're looking at the strength of supply and demand in this case, that is possible. And then for fun, what I also did, because we also have a macro version, which people are going to love, is that I also then, so that was the smaller one that I projected, but then we also have the prospect of a very big one. And I'd need to look at what the previous chart is here, but obviously that takes us back down to $400, so everyone's going to freak out about that. But again, it is the same pattern. Let me just hide the smaller one. It is potentially the same pattern. You know, again, like this demand isn't strong. If the demand is unable to create a higher high, then it can't be considered strong. And like these are preemptive. We don't know as yet. So again, like this is on the lower time frame. So the lower time frame, as much what I said with Bitcoin, we had the daily demand holding up the consolidation. On Ether, we've got a weekly demand holding up the consolidation. What's happened today is we've dropped through it. And like if we get a bounce now and a strong move back up, so the other thing, we created a weekly supply, and I had an alert here for a short. I haven't actually got it on this chart, but I had an alert here for a short on the 5-day supply. I actually didn't even notice that we created a weekly until today, so essentially the weekly's already been tested, and that's why we've got the bigger move down. If this bounces either now, it's closed this CME gap, this was the big CME gap. There are some other smaller ones, and there's the one at the bottom is quite a big one. Well, not nowhere near as big as the one up here, but it's a decent sized one right at the bottom as well. Or in fact, no, I think it's down at this bottom. All the other ones in between are relatively small ones and potentially insignificant. If we can get a decent bounce on this week, or off here, and such that the weekly closes back up above this weekly zone, then it won't be so bad. And again, you're seeing very similar here. We had a weekly demand there, and we've had a few wicks through it. I think there was a daily just underneath it in this case. We had a few wicks through it. So it's possible we still hold here. I don't want to be overly bearish until I see the weekly close. And again, if we create the 2-week and the 3-week supply on that, then I'll be more skeptical. But it can still hold with wicks. That would be okay. So while it's not looking great at the moment, we need to see the close below for it to really be significantly more bearish. Having said that, it looks bearish enough for me to consider shorts, and that's why I put in the 5-day supply short there. And also again, so I've added an alert. So on this, I've added an alert for the daily supply here, and as I said, on Bitcoin, that's not normally a zone I would want to trade on Bitcoin, because I'm used to sort of Bitcoin running through these zones. But also Bitcoin is potentially much more a swing failure of previous lows. So I'll reconsider this, once I see how some of these candles close, particularly today, but certainly the weekly, but possible short and daily supply up there, and then also if we retest. And there was a small CME gap left at the top as well. But yeah, so that's very much my bearish outlook on Ether. But again, trading zones as and when they get hit and tested. So down here we've got weekly demand, and we've got monthly demand, and we're coming off monthly demand at the low. I do my thesis on Ether currently is a lot more bearish than on Bitcoin, and so I'm much more inclined to look for shorts on this. And if ETHBTC starts to show a turnaround, then prove me wrong, and that's fine. But until ETHBTC starts to show a turnaround, then I can't be particularly bullish on this. Having said that, I don't mean bearish at the lows either, so don't be shorting now. Wait for retests to short, and wait for the demand zones to long. But I would suggest that you don't put limit orders here. That while I have entries here, they're not for limit orders. If you want to put limit orders, then I would put them a lot lower, and potentially down to this 3-month demand in here. That's where I'd be looking for limit orders potentially. And then let's not go down the track of the bigger picture yet. I'm going to take out this channel anyway. I was considering that channel. That was a possibility of a channel earlier, but I want to see the bounce at the low before having that in as a channel. So I think that's it on Ether. The career, my bullish thesis on Ether was that we have an annual demand on the career pair quite close to price. So didn't quite tap. I did put an alert in there earlier today. It didn't quite tap the level, but so if Ether US dollar pair and career pair, or if US dollar pair just retraces and the career pair potentially goes a little bit lower, I think we can still hold here and still get a decent move up. The difficulty again with the career pair is that this is a demand based on a swing fail of the high, so it's not a strong demand. Doesn't mean it won't work, but it just means it's not strong. And again, that 3 month. So those are the kind of the significant zones for high time frame longs. And unless if we start seeing a breakout of the high, then great, then we can start looking at getting in on retest. But I need to see this break out the high, whether I'm looking at the career pair or the US dollar pair. I need to see a breakout of the high, because at the moment we're looking at a double top. A double top on the mid time frame as well as a double top on the high time frame. And neither of those are particularly good. I don't think the CME pair added anything particularly. Also didn't create annual demand. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. So my summary on Ether Oh, I know one thing I didn't cover on the Bitcoin stuff actually. So summary on Ether is that we're bouncing on 3 months demand, but we made it a monthly supply. So we're still in a bearish downtrend. However, we're looking at the similarities in the pattern of 2018 to 19 and whether we're going to get a similar type reversal here. However, the lower time frames are showing no sign of that actually happening as yet. So we need to see some sort of strength come in on Ether at a higher low here, or a swing fail of that low to be more confident of ETHBTC pair. If I start seeing that happen on ETHBTC pair, then I'll start to be more confident of longs on the Ether US dollar pair. I've shown all the different patterns, the lower highs, the weakness of demand on this. However, longs are possible in weekly demand down here, monthly inside it. If we get a bigger drop, 3 months demand below that, and then shorts possible, daily supply here, daily supply above. And on everything, on both Bitcoin and Ether, if we create 2 weekly supply, then I'll be significantly more bearish by the end of this week. Like, we need to see a decent bounce this week. We had PPI and CPI on tomorrow and the day after, respectively, and that could give us some volatility, so we'll see. But that's the update on Ether and Bitcoin, and yeah, just showing you on the low time frame chart. So I was looking for a swing failure there on Ether, and we did take a significant wick through it and down to fill that CME gap, which I hadn't actually looked at. But we're really looking for both of these to start to make a move up at this point. And if they can't get strength by tomorrow or Wednesday at the latest, then I'm going to be quite nervous for the future of Bitcoin and Ether. So that's that. The only other thing I didn't look at, which normally I do, is are the Grayscale charts, and that they are worth considering. Grayscale and the other ETF charts as well. So GBTC, 3 months demand. We did actually have an annual demand that was made, and was barely made, it was dubiously made at the end of last year, but we do have an annual demand down below that. But then, so we've got a similar 3 months demand on this, but this is starting again to look a bit more dodgy. We had a weekly supply already rejected on this. It hasn't actually created a weekly supply from last week, but it is actually using that level as a resistance for today. It's a decent sized gap here, so there is the possibility this runs down into that monthly demand. But similar to the BTC pair, I haven't got it drawn in because this is a higher time frame, but we are still holding the daily demand of the consolidation at the moment. But if we don't see strength coming in quite soon, then I'm expecting a drop back down into this area. Ether looks significantly worse. So again, much bigger drop possible on this. Monthly demand a lot lower, and I think, yeah, the US dollar pair has, you know, weeklies a lot closer. This has a sort of a much further it could drop, and again was nowhere near taking out the previous high. We could still see consolidation through this area, but I need to see that sort of 2022 area hold on the Ether pair. The large caps is predominantly made up of Bitcoin, so hasn't taken out the previous high, but again, we're seeing more strength on this than we do on Ether because it's predominantly made up of Bitcoin. I think there's a bit of Link and a bit of ADA and probably a bit of Ether in there. But again, the concern here is if it does break, it's got a decent sized drop it can make. It has an annual demand at least, so that would be the closest major support, and then a weekly just sitting on top of that. Litecoin, the alts are basically looking hideous from Grayscale, and that was kind of the main point that I wanted to make. Annual supply on Litecoin has been rejected, tested up in weekly supply. It did have this 2 month demand, but hasn't got very high in it. And again, I look at this and I would, if anybody said to me, should I buy this, multiple tests on this demand, I would be saying you're buying down in this 3 month zone down here. BCH, much the same. So even though BCH is just genuinely stronger, but again, it's got sort of, clear waves up, clear correction. Yes, it could make a double bottom here on this monthly, on 2 monthly demand to still hold, but again, I'd be more inclined to be looking for buys down here on BCH. ETC again was a bit stronger because, like as I said, some of the alts kind of came through and swing failed these monthly supplies. Stronger, yes, but again, not being able to hold a decent move off this weekly demand. I would expect them to drop down into the lower weekly demand, and then maybe a consolidation through here before the next move up. XLM, in the absence of Grayscale having Ripple, they have XLM. So this did move quite high, but it's still, again, 3-month supply. Could flip this 2-month. So it did kind of make a 2-month demand here, so it could still flip and hold here. So I guess there's still hope for Ripple from a Grayscale perspective. But again, it's not a very nice structure. And I don't like these charts anyway because of the gaps in the candles. But again, that would be the zone that I'd be looking at to long this weekly if it comes back there. Doesn't have to come back, but if it does. Zen was the only one I kind of actually liked a bit better. So it's got a 2-month demand and it's just testing that now. Still coming off the lower high, but it did get through monthly supply. Maybe we can get some consolidation here and another move on that. I don't know if there's a case for privacy coins again. But then Zcash, slightly more ropey, has this 2-month supply. Again, this I can be more promising on. But again, like a lot of alts, I just don't like these trend lines that we're seeing. We have monthly demands, weak monthly demands because they're unable to make new highs. Trend line stops below. So the prospect of many of the alts coming through that, I really think is high probability. And yeah, so that's it, I think. I think I'll leave it there because I just want to check these streams are recording correctly as well, and I hope I'm not talking to myself. I hope that's useful. Sorry that I'm fairly bearish on Ether. Bitcoin, yeah, I just need to see a bit more. But yeah, let me know in chat if you have any questions. Let me just check if there's any comments on Twitch. My Twitch viewers. I don't know how to look. I've got Twitch on my phone. I don't know how to actually look at the chat on here. Still trying to work out how things work with this new setup. Stream manager. Yes, that seems. Oh yeah. Oh, just a spam comment, and then somebody else checking. So we're good. And no new comments on YouTube. So yeah. If you want to talk to me further, feel free to join my Telegram channel and let me know if you've got any questions. Have a good night.